Virgo Sun and Rising. Welcome to a video looking at the transit of Saturn into Pisces and Pluto into Aquarius. I'm going to be talking about the current placements as I record this before they both have gone into their new respective signs, because in the case of Pluto, it is going to go back into Capricorn. It's just going to get to 0 degrees, and then it's going to go back. It's going to retrograde and go back into Capricorn, and actually end the year 2023 still in Capricorn. So it's something to be aware of as well. And then with Saturn, I'm recording this in January, so it's still going to be there for a couple more months. And depending on your personal chart, it may continue to be in the sign of, or in the house that I talk about, because it all depends on your degree of sun or rising, how your chart placement is. So in any case, let's start with Saturn. Saturn has been in the sign of Aquarius for almost 3 years. I don't remember exactly when it went into Aquarius. I think it was around the time of the shutdown, so it was probably around March of 2020 that it went in, but it might have been a little bit before that. But anyway, whenever. Oh, actually, I think I'm trying to remember, or if that was the winter when both, probably that following December was when both Saturn and Jupiter were in Aquarius. So that might be something else that I'm thinking of. But in any case, it's been a few years, and it hasn't been in Pisces for 30 years. So, or almost 30 years. So that is very significant. And that's why March of 2023 is going to be so noteworthy astrologically, because Pluto hasn't been in Aquarius for like 200 and something years, since the American Revolution and the French Revolution in the late 18th century or 1700s. So anyway, with Saturn in Aquarius, this has been your 6th house. So some Virgo people for the last few years, you may have found that you've had some kind of a health issue. This is your house, by the way, in case you didn't know. So it can be your work, what I call service to others, or your health, or your daily routine, your schedule. Maybe that has been a burden to you in some way, where you've just had like so much on your plate. You've been working overtime, maybe, for some of you, and there might be for a good reason, and it might end up creating a foundation that serves you. So I'm not saying it's just all bad, but the point is that sometimes these things can, in the moment feel very burdensome, and maybe some nagging health issues that have kind of dragged on. Saturn can be, I think, bones in particular. Maybe bones or teeth. I don't know if that's included in that. Maybe arthritis, dental problems. I'm not entirely sure. But any kind of just limitations physically. And maybe you've had to really have a strict diet because of it. So the 6th house can be diet, but with Saturn, you have to be very disciplined about it, because it might be something that you can't deviate from. And just like in terms of work itself, you may, if you have been kind of like underemployed or something like that, you may find that it's been harder than it usually is to find a job or to keep a job. Maybe you got your hours cut. Saturn can restrict things, but this is coming to an end. So maybe you're like saying hallelujah. And Saturn is going to go into your seventh house on the 7th of March. And this is very interesting because this is the exact same date as there's going to be a full moon at 16 degrees of Virgo, your sign. So that makes it even more of a date to remember and significant for Virgos. But again, like I said, it may not go into that seventh house on March 7th. It will eventually, but it depends on your degree of sun or rising. So when it goes into that seventh house, it's going to be in the area of committed partnership. So here is how I have read it. It can play out is that if you have a current relationship and you have Saturn going into your seventh house, it can test that relationship. Now, if you have a sound relationship, you may go through hard times or some kind of something might come up, but because you are already committed to one another, it won't it won't make or break you as a couple. But if the relationship is already shaky, yes, it is possible that you will break up with that person. Now, first of all, that seems kind of okay and logical because if something's already shaky, maybe it's good for it to end. But some people, they're so like attached to relationships, even if they're bad relationships, that they hear that they're going to automatically give me a thumbs down because they don't want to think about that, and that it's terrible that I even mentioned that. So don't be that person. But anyway, the other thing too is that this can be the time when you decide to commit. Now, I've never really understood why Virgo is the hermit in the tarot. I I guess I mean there's like this purity, virginal quality that's associated with Virgo, I suppose. Maybe that is that kind of holy, that symbolism of holy, of a holy person. But other than that, I don't really know. And I don't think of Virgo as a solitary kind of a sign. So that's another thing. It's funny too because Virgo is opposing that 12th house that I always call the Hermit house. It's a Pisces domain. And I don't think of Pisces as lone wolves either, wolves either. So it's all a mystery to me. But in any case, this could be the time that you commit to somebody, and that's because Saturn can indicate taking on a responsibility, especially with actual legal marriage. So you might even be living with someone and you say, you know what, I think I'm going to just put a ring on it. Because Saturn is about tradition, so it could be something like that. So anyway, I'm basically saying, you might break up with someone, cement your relationship, or commit to someone if you're dating or quote unquote just living with them. Now let's talk about Pluto. Pluto has been in Capricorn for so many years, since January of 2008, and like I said, it's going to go back into Capricorn after it briefly goes into Aquarius on a day that is a palindrome, a numerical palindrome, which is backwards and forwards, it reads the same. At least the way Americans write out dates. We write the month first. And so it's going to be March 23rd, 2023. So just look at that backwards and you'll see it's the same thing. So that's pretty cool beans. But anyway, Aquarius for you is that sixth house that Saturn has just left. So it's kind of like this tag team where you have Pluto and Saturn like kind of going into adjacent signs. Of course, Saturn is going to, break away from Pluto very easily because Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for 20 years. And that is like a mind blower. So that'll be like 6, almost 7 signs away from Saturn at that point when it ends that transit. But anyway, they are adjacent to one another currently. And in Vedic astrology, both of these planets are considered malefic planets, meaning that they exert a negative influence over people. And I mean that's how I take it. I confess that I'm not well versed in Vedic astrology, but I don't necessarily want to be because I don't want to view anything as bad or good. So with these planets, I'm only saying that because there could be this frying pan into the fire type of scenario where you just got done with Saturn in this house of work and now you've got Pluto coming in. But Pluto doesn't just have bad influences, so that's what I was trying to get across. But let's talk about the challenging influences of Pluto in the 6th house. First of all, it can give you an obsession for power in the workplace. So you may be eyeing the boss's position. Because the 6th house can be the workspace, and that implies that you're working for someone else if you're in an office environment. Now, Virgo people are usually very nondescript, where you're just there to be efficient and do your job, and you're not really trying to, build an empire necessarily, but you certainly have the right stuff for that. And you certainly, especially if your sun is in Virgo, you may have inner planets in Scorpio, specifically something like Mars, and you could have that Machiavellian streak in you. But and that your moon sign, if your sun is in Virgo, your moon sign and your rising sign can be any sign. So you might have Scorpio in either one of those positions, or Capricorn, something that is very ambitious, or even Mars. But in any case, I'm sorry, I meant Aries. But in any case, for whatever reason, you may be very, desiring or obsessed with that idea for some reason. That can lead to conflicts with your coworkers. Sometimes this can be something entirely different, where there's just like a negative environment and it's kind of like covertly hostile. Pluto can be those power plays, but sometimes they're behind the scenes. But if you are behaving in a way that is very power hungry, then it might be because of that you are creating this animosity that coworkers are feeling towards you. So you have to kind of be on your best behavior when Pluto is in the 6th house if you work in an office space, and make sure that you're not being overbearing, because of your own desires. Because there's nothing wrong with having ambition as long as somebody isn't like trying to walk all over other people. And and if you suspect that you're in a workplace where other people are conspiring against you, you feel kind of paranoid and you sense that there's kind of this undercurrent that you can't put your finger on, then that's something that you may have to contend with. And it might be that you have to leave that environment if it feels uncomfortable, because, it can definitely affect people in a very subtle way to be exposed to that. Um, Another thing that can happen that can be challenging with Pluto in the sixth house is developing an eating disorder. And of course, that is only going to happen if other factors contribute to that. I'm not saying everybody who has this is going to develop one, but Virgo is already a sign of perfectionism. Pluto is a desire for control. The sixth house is health. So it can be obsession with health. Now, the two things that I can see with this particular, the two types of eating disorders that I could think of are anorexia and orthorexia. Anorexia, most people know, is limiting intake of food in order to, because the person has some type of distortion and thinks that they are fat, overweight, whatever you want to call it, when they're not, or maybe they're exaggerating it. Maybe they're chubby and they're not really like morbidly obese, but they just can't stop dieting, and it just takes over their life. That quest for perfectionism. But you see, the reason I'm saying that this could be the case is because when people have eating disorders, sometimes the root cause is because they feel powerless, and their diet is the one thing that they can control. They feel out of control in so many areas of life. So that's what I was really going for, because the sixth house can be your diet. So it's like controlling your diet. The other one is orthorexia, where the person is obsessed with purity in their diet. So, oh my God, I don't have access to distilled water, so I can't drink tap water. It'll poison me. So I'm gonna just dry fast until I can get my hands on some spring water from Whole Foods or something. or just being like, when people and by the way, I mean, there's nothing wrong with eating a clean diet whatsoever, but it's when it becomes an obsession, which is like a form of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and it whittles down the food choices that a person feels comfortable eating. Again, there's that element of perfectionism where the person wants to eat the perfect diet, the purest diet. I can't eat that celery, that's on the dirty dozen list, and that's got pesticides on it. You see, I know about this stuff. I have the moon in Virgo, so I can joke about, obsession with clean foods, because I know all about this. I live this lifestyle, and I eat a fair amount of organic food, but it's like, it's very fear based when people are too obsessed with it. Nothing wrong with eating it, but sometimes you can't access it for whatever reason, and what are you going to do? So those types of people will just limit their foods, and then you find that they're limiting it more and more and more. So looking at your health, are you obsessed with your health? And of course, obsession can run the gamut when it comes to your health. So keeping balance with health matters, not getting too obsessed, involved, and fear-based about it. Because it could even be, even though I don't specifically think of the sixth house as exercise, sometimes I think of the first house more like that, but it could be because it is health, it could be health related. If a person's exercising specifically for their health and not just for, you know, a hobby or something, then, you know, some people they go overboard with that too because they're trying to achieve some type of perfection, the way that they look, the way that they feel. And, you know, it's not either or. You can be healthy without being obsessed. So, anyway, what else could this be? Well, let's talk about some positive things. This could be a time when, and remember, I said this is going to be happening for 20 years, so this could be like a whole period of time for you where you do start to make healthier choices. There might be some Virgos out there who are fast food junkies. I'm sure that you're few and far between because a lot of Virgo people I always associate it with vegetarianism or herbalism. Things are natural diets and things like that. But, you know, there are always outliers in life. So it might be something where you are starting to really clean up your diet. You could be interested in healing as an art form, as a profession, even as your service to others. And sometimes this is because of your healing journey that you know, then decide to do it for others. There are so many great documentaries. I really enjoyed like that one. I can't think of the name of it, but you know that one about the juicing. Um, I can't. I'm surprised I can't think of the name of it, but I'm sure a lot of you have seen it if you're a Virgo. And Forks Over Knives. There's just been some really inspirational videos that involve diet and lifestyle changes. And um, sometimes these things, or maybe it's a book or a YouTube channel, become a catalyst for people to embark on a holistic lifestyle, and then they take it a step further, and then they're doing it for a living. But it's not just for a living; it's because they want to embody it in all ways, shapes, or form. So, in any case, there's something transformational that occurs for you when Pluto is here in your sixth house. And who knows? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there are a lot of Virgo people, and that would include the ascendant Virgo, who might be workaholics. And perhaps this Pluto transit helps to reshape your concept of your how you order your time. Maybe you decide that you want to do things differently. And that's awesome because, you know, sometimes it's so easy, especially if you already have that inclination to be very organized and stuff like that, to really adhere to a schedule. And it almost becomes like second nature. And it can really serve you because it can, you know, it can make you very productive and consistent. But then you get, it's almost like a rut, and it almost ensnares you in this familiarity, but it's not necessarily continuing to, you know, be for your highest good. So sometimes you might have to, you know, radically shift your life in terms of how you order your time. So maybe that's something that's going to be part of this shift, and maybe it will be gradual. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but that could be another thing that um, is going on for you. So anyway, um, that's what I wanted to. Oh yeah, and one thing I just want to say, just along those lines, is not just your schedule, but the work you're doing itself, because sometimes people say, "Oh well, I'm a nurse because there's a high demand for nurses," or I'm a teacher because there's, I found out that that was the area of need, so I became a teacher. But you don't really have a passion for it necessarily. You might be talented, you might be good at it, but you just aren't feeling it. And you decide, you know what? I really want to do something that I feel aligned with. And you take it to the next level. It's not just about being pragmatic with your work, it's about doing what you feel called to do. And I really think that goes along with Pluto, because Pluto is, here to transform others and themselves and society. And that's, when Pluto goes into Aquarius, it's going to be transforming humanity. Maybe that is the age of Aquarius, when Pluto goes into Aquarius, because it has such a generational influence, but also it's reaching across the spectrum of humanity, the collective, to the collective. So, on a micro level versus a macro level, in terms of Virgo people, this may be something where you need to, because this is your house, where you need to transform your attitude as, what is work? Is work something that makes you feel like you are okay? Or are you doing it because you're truly trying to serve other people? Do you need to work as much as you do? Maybe, you're working so hard because you're trying to prove your worthiness, and you really don't need to do that. So it's really a great exploration into all of these things too. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there. I hope that that gave you some ideas to um, to think about as these transits come into your life. Again, with the Pluto, I think that will be coming more like 2024 for some people than, and even beyond that. But at least you get a taste for it. And certainly with Saturn, it's going to definitely impact you more, because, and especially those with Saturn, it will impact the earlier degrees the most, because I believe Saturn's only going to go up to about 7 degrees of Pisces in 2023. So, I mean, also, if you are in your late 20s, you may be having your first Saturn return. You'll have to see, if you know your chart, if your natal Saturn is in Pisces, then for sure that's going to happen for you. And then if you're like me, although I'm not a sun in Virgo, but people who are in their late 50s, they're having their second Saturn return. And people in their late 80s into their 90s are having their third one. The second one is about the choices that you have made, kind of assessing your life thus far. I don't know about the third one. I'm sure it's just maybe your spiritual life, because as you get to that age, you're kind of maybe going away from career matters and more into the spiritual, but who knows? So that adds another dimension to this Saturn transit into your opposite sign, because you're going to have to contend with the issues of having, for most of you, it's going to be your first or second Saturn return. And what does that mean? But, always be gentle with yourself, and whatever you feel that you haven't done, especially if this is your second Saturn return, um, you still can achieve those things. In some cases, those goals may be outmoded, um, based on things that you thought that you really wanted. And you have to really do some self-inquiry if those are really legitimate goals still. For the first Saturn return, I think it might not even be that big of a deal because it's really about growing up. And I think a lot of Virgo people um, are pretty diligent people. So by the time you're in your late 20s, you probably already have gotten your uh, proverbial shit together, because that's just how Virgos roll usually. But there's always, again, there are outliers who probably say to themselves, how come I can't be the Virgo person that I'm supposed to be? Well, I'm sure there are reasons if you look at your chart why that is. But in any case, if you would like a private reading with me, the information is at the link below. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.